So let's assume you can begin by creating your HTML files and HTML and CSS files, one for Pseudo Element HTML and another one for CSS. You link your pages like this, and the same applies to this, and then we look at what Pseudo Elements are. We could come and say that these act as if you added a whole new HTML element into the markup, and we shall see why. Because at the end, when you use a pseudo element, there are certain things you can do to it that will completely look like you have added in a certain type of tag or a certain or you've added your own HTML tags, yet you are simply using pseudo elements. These are selected or used using, or they begin with a double full colon, whereas classes begin with a single full colon. And these, for example, can do styles with first line, first letter. We can combine the two. We can look at before, we look at after the content. That's where we majorly apply these pseudo elements, and you are going to see how. Now we can start by saying we have an H3 here that says first dash line. You can come and style it here, H3. We create a background that is maybe green. We create color of the text to be white smoke. We create the width to be around 300 pixels. We create the border radius, one that creates the curvature or the curves at the end of what would look like a square, to be around 4 pixels. And we could as well say text dash align to align the text, at this particular text here to be at the center of this that we are creating. So when we refresh our page here, we have something that looks like that. We are going to begin with what we call first line, and we are going to go to our HTML page here. You can say dot first dash line. Then we have a paragraph, a paragraph that has a very long word, or we can limit it. We are going to create a paragraph where we say, assuming we wanted it to only occupy, I will show you something here. We can come and you have other things I know where you can just copy this particular word here or sentence and paste it here. I'll show you what I'm getting at. When I refresh my page, I have the whole line, the whole paragraph plus divs now. So what does first line do? I can pick my class, come here and say go to that class, the paragraph that is there, pick the first line, and to the first line add a background that is maybe that is chocolate, a background that is chocolate. So all this is the whole paragraph, but the first line of this paragraph is this. So when I refresh, a paragraph has been added onto. It means we can also say color that thing to purple. So we refresh, and we have the first line worked upon like that. Now, if you only wanted, for example, assuming you had all that line, but then the container or the class was just a width of maybe 400 pixels. So your paragraph was going to be to fit in 400 pixels of the container, 400 pixels of the page, maybe something that stops like here or around here. What would happen when I refresh? Then still all these would be wrapped. This is word wrapping. When we come to text, we shall look at how to stop word wrapping. So you can see, even when we've reduced or forced the container to be 400 pixels, still only the first line of this container has been picked. So if it was a full page, then maybe up to like around here would be selected, since all this is quite long. And now we are saying the wordings, maybe this was important or a highlight that we need somebody to see, and it was our first line, so we could work on it like that. The next one would be first letter. The next one is first letter. We can come here and say HR, BR, and then we say dot, maybe first dash letter, and then I can say maybe H2. We could use the can put it, say, in a section, assuming we just wanted to pick that to be our section. We can say, we could say maybe H2 food types, or create them as paragraphs. We could say paragraph. Would say paragraph, say food types. Okay, then we could say we could say another paragraph here, that which kind of food do you like, just like that. But here we are saying that the H3, what we are dealing with is first, first dash letter. This is first dash letter. So I can refresh our page here. To find that first letter. Then now we are going to see how the first letter as a pseudo element looks like. So we expect it to work on the first letter of that line. We pick our class here. Under that class, or our paragraphs, so we can say paragraph, then double full colon, and we pick first letter. What do we want with it? We could say maybe font size, say 50 pixels. What else? We could say color, maybe white smoke. So when we refresh our page, this is what we see. We've created a drop cap, just like you see in Windows, Microsoft Office. Yeah, Microsoft Office, you create drop caps by selecting that letter you want to be worked upon, and then you go ahead and you insert the drop cap. So the same applies to this particular first letter as a pseudo element. So like we said, when you look at this, somebody might think you have added a new HTML tag to create this, but yet you are simply picking the first letter and working on it the way you want. And you could also combine the two. You can pick the first letter and the first line at the same time, and and work on them, they will have no problem. You could since these are first lines in each category, then when we say first line, for example, we could say dot first letter as a class now, then pick a paragraph. So it is going to pick both paragraphs because every paragraph is on its own line. Then first line we could say that maybe color. What color do we want? Maybe violet. So when you do that, you refresh, and now we have capital F and then this first line being violet. So these two can work together. You could maybe change this to a color you would see, maybe something like purple. I'm sure purple can be seen here. Okay, so I'm combining first letter and first line to achieve something like that. So let's look at before as another type of pseudo element. Could say HR, BR, then we have H3 as a before. This applies in quite many ways. There is before, there is after. They work the little opposite, but the structure is the same. With before, you are trying to put something before, you are trying to add or insert, say, a symbol, usually symbols that your keyboard might not have, and so you want to pick them using before when you are dealing with CSS. In HTML, you could just do before or after in any way you want. There is what we call HTML entities. You can just Google it, HTML entities and CSS entities. They work almost the same but slightly different, because for HTML entities you will need to strictly put them inside HTML. CSS entities are also strictly put or used on the CSS files. I will show you the difference. For example, HTML entities begin with an and. Some others you'll see and hash. If I said, for example, and copy like this will create, that's it for ourselves, this creates the copyright symbol. So I could say that www, I could say that and then say www.skycodes.com. okay, so when I refresh my page, I have something like this, copyright to www.skycodes.com. This is a way, this is also a before function, but not for CSS. So let's look at the CSS before, how it is used. We could create a list, create a class here that we call before, okay, and then we say create a class that has before, and then we say UL li, this is probably beef, could say beef. We can maybe copy this and paste it here. Beef, we have chicken, we have turkey, and maybe rabbit. Okay, so when we refresh our page, we could add a small BR here to create some space. When we refresh our page, this is what you see. We have already looked at the introduction about lists. We shall look at lists properly again in their full context. So what do we do now? When you look at this, they have dots. What if we wanted to put something else here? Or for example, leave it empty? What do? We come here, select this class. So we are saying go to this class of before, the UL, and then on the LI list item, which is the exact line here. This is where we are. Go to the class, the UL, and then the LI, which will give an effect on this. We are going to say list style, for example, none. Look at some of these examples here. We are going to look at them properly. See circle, decimal, disk, Georgian, lower alpha, lower Roman. If you select lower Roman, for example, you see it change. I don't want to go there for now because we shall look at it in full context. But for us, we want to say list style none. And we are going to meet list style none when we are dealing with, for example, links. So links and lists, we are going to do that while building navigation bars. We shall also look at the same list style none. So we have removed them. Now the line is empty. So what can we do? What if we wanted to add something there? We could then say dot before UL, LI, then now we apply our class, our pseudo element rather, that before. So we are saying that go to the LI here, but before you print the LI, what do? Content could be left empty. We shall look at counters later. Content could be, for example, left empty. So when it is left empty, then we see it empty here. But we could also use CSS entities to really put something of our own choice. You don't have to cram the CSS entities, just Google them and you will have several sites showing you which kind of entities you want. Maybe you want a dollar sign, or what we rather than and sign, what we call ampersand. Or you want, for example, like an asterisk here. So I can copy this number or just memorize it, 0026. Come to my CSS here and say // and then 0026. So when I do that, come to my page and refresh it here, I have an ampersand starting instead of the normal dots. Let's continue. It also means that I can give them a color. I can say that color them. I didn't terminate this, that is why we are seeing it look like that. Color them, give them a color, maybe let's give them white, since our background is a bit greenish. We could also say size, maybe the size. If you want to change the size, we could also call this 35 pixels. So now this also has introduced a new item or way of showing us that you can put these CSS properties on one line as long as you terminate them. When I refresh here, I can see them white. Okay, so it is the same as doing this. It won't change anything on our work, you see. But when I put them on the same line, then I reduce the number of lines of code. Now when you look at them here, what if we wanted to increase the space between these icons or CSS entities? and where the line begins and where our letter, the first letter, begins, we could come and add another CSS property called display. And here we are going to choose inline block. Why? Because one paragraphs or URLs will be block level elements, and if they are block level elements and we want to force them to go to be with the our ampersand or our symbol on the same line, then we say inline block. We are going to look at this properly when we come to display. We have a topic called display, and we shall cover most of these things. We shall even meet others like alignment, where we shall look at inline block and then inline block. So inline block, and then we can say, now that we have set them to be together, we can now check the width. The width could be 1 em. What is 1 em? By default, your words are under 16 pixels by default. Okay, so 1 em equals 16 over 16 pixels. So 16 pixels divided by 16 pixels, you get 1 em. You will find more about em when you come to text, which will be the next topic you are going to cover. So when I refresh now, there is some bit of space. In case you didn't see it, increase the ems. When I make them 2, it means I am multiplying the pixels by 2. So I refresh, and now you can see. So that is before. Now after would literally work the same. It would be the same thing. We can just pick it here, okay, and then we say that this should change to after. Okay, then maybe we can now change the location of this, since we are dealing with after. Then this class will also change to after. So when we refresh our page here, we have after down there. Now you can see www.skycodes.com copyright. Now we need to work on this. So what do? We can go back and simply copy these. We don't have to explain them again. We can just change the class here from before to after. And for the start, when this is closed, after, we shall see that after your style none, we are still having this affecting our content, but that is okay. We can go ahead and say go to the class called after, the URI, then we say after as a pseudo element. So what are we looking at? We are saying after is like that. So we refresh our page, and now we have after. We could put them. So we are saying that on the after, please make sure it is like that. They could be just words even if they were not URLs, but with URLs, that is what you get. We could as well first close this one here for us to work properly with after. Okay, we could close out that one such that we work properly with after, and then we change. If you want the spacing there, we need to add another one here, because that was simply working on the width. We could say padding dash left could be around 10 pixels. So the padding here, padding left, the left of this ampersand should be 10 pixels. So padding will create a space here of after, unlike before where we were using this function. So when we refresh our page, we shall see our space there. But if we wanted to change, you come back here. Maybe I want the star now. It is 002A. So I come here and remove the 6 and put the capital A. The rest could be the same. I come just and refresh, and I have a star. So we could also, even if it was just a word, now you get the point. Even if they were just words, by putting words here without UL, we could maybe say dot after 2, dot after 2, and then we say paragraph meet paragraph meet. Then we can say that after 2, we could do it in HTML. By the way, we could stay in HTML and do it from there if we wanted. Just put the function here of an and. We could say after 2 paragraph, after full colon. So the class content could be maybe 002A. When we refresh our page, we have our stars there. It means we could also say padding left could be 10 pixels. See what that does, creates our space there. Then we could also say color, we could say color, can make it purple. We could say size, maybe 100 pixels. So when we refresh, we have the color there. So that is, then we could do, maybe you can choose to save this. Can just bring this back here, which will have an effect on this, but we could go to HTML and comment this line. If we comment it, you can see the difference in comments. When we refresh, then we have these two. So that could be another example. That could be another example of that. So our last part here will be selection. And maybe what I can talk about selection, you can select the entire, you can choose to tell the page that when you are selecting this page, please look like this. When, for example, when we are selecting here, you can see we are taking that background color. Okay, so we can come to the body, come to CSS here, and say body. We use that pseudo element for selection, and we say background should be violet. Okay, white. Let's see what that does. We'll refresh our page. When we start selecting, the background is turning into white, rather width. We could probably show you a different color. that will make you get convinced properly. You can see our purple there, okay, here, that when we are selecting that it becomes purple, okay. We could also be specific. For example, can add on another example here. For selection, we could say dot select. Then we have our paragraph. We can say maybe H1 food types, okay, food types. Then we say we can say H1 food types. We can begin with this, okay, copy H1, 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 so food types. Then we pick our class here. We come to CSS and say dot class H1 selection, okay, as our pseudo class, and we say that background should be hot pink, and for that matter the color could also be white as you put the background of hot pink. So when we refresh our page here, we have food types. We can add on all the things we've been using for proper visualization. H3, this was going to be selection, okay. So when we refresh our page, we have something like that. Now we know that. So we've already set it up. When we start selecting, you can see hot pink, the words are turning into white, they are black, they are turning into white, and we are having selection as hot pink. But if we added in H2 here, or H3, H4, H3 is already booked, that says chicken, okay, chicken, copy, chicken, copy, chicken, copy, chicken. So we come to our CSS here. We refresh our page. Now we've added in chicken. See what happens? Pink to white. Now that is a different color altogether. You see, you can see that. So we have two different colors for this. So we are saying when you select H1, give it that color. We could have well said when you select H2, the same thing here, copy, rather H4 under that class, maybe hot pink, but say green, okay. But that comes out. Here we go, green. So those are pseudo elements. If somebody looked at it, like I've said, they might think we are applying a different tag altogether, but that is no different tag. You are simply applying all these using pseudo selectors. So we've introduced entities for both the HTML and CSS. We've looked at selection, we've looked at after, we've looked at before, first line. We've looked at first letter, creating drop caps and all those things. We've looked at a mixture of first line and first letter here. So those are pseudo elements. Now you can concentrate on working on the assignment immediately after this. Thank you.